Hello, welcome, and thanks for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. The Senate Committee on Finance met Tuesday to consider two bills. First on the table was legislation to make automobile rental insurance secondary to that renter's valid and primary auto insurance coverage. News 2's Erica Parsons has more.
In more than half of the United States, a driver's automobile insurance coverage is primary over any rental coverage they purchase when they rent a vehicle. Senator Terrence Nelson has been trying for the last 5 years to pass similar legislation locally.
We have guests who come in from the mainland, and unfortunately they also drive on the wrong side of the road. Sometimes when they do get an accident, the damage to the claimant's property and sometimes person is not really covered by our limited liability insurance, and then the attempt to go after the renter's insurance back home has been quite complicated, and you have cases been drawn out for a long time.
The insurance commissioner and two local car rental company owners all testified that they're in support of the bill, which can bring outside revenues to the territory.
You support the measure? I support the measure. Thank you very much for your support.
I think this is a great bill. I think it's a win-win-win. Win for the territory, win for the local population, and win for us car rental company.
Director McDonald said although he supports the bill, he's concerned about insurance carriers licensed outside the territory who might challenge accident claims and tie up the time that VI residents can get a settlement. That wouldn't be the norm, but he said he needs to do more research to help prevent loopholes. Another issue raised during Tuesday's discussion was the fact that local car rental companies are often left holding the bag when visitors get tickets, and that's another stream of revenue. Rental car officials say it's often a year or more before they learn about the ticket when they try to register the vehicle. By then, it's too late to charge the visitor's credit card. Senator O'Reilly said it's a crisis on the shoulders of the Superior Court.
To the extent that you aren't able, you don't get notification of a ticket for 2 years, that's unacceptable. Completely and totally unacceptable. It falls squarely on the shoulders of the Superior Court and their inability to digitize or automate the process.
Erica Parsons, News 2.
All 7 senators of the Finance Committee voted to move Bill 30-7 to the Rules Committee for further consideration. Well, we got 2 senators' responses to Governor Jongh's comments that lawmakers should do more to address the fiscal crisis.
Acting like we're in a crisis situation. Our people is in a crisis. Worst thing are going to happen if the first branch of government, this legislature, do not immediately take action with a various proposal to halt the demise of our financial situation.
I support returning the 8% because that's going to help the economy. What is saddening to me is that the majority who decided to pass this measure in support of the governor's desire to cut government's costs had no real plan of generating revenues to return this money. The governor borrowed 3 times. What he's not saying is that he's borrowed 3 times supposedly to preserve this government operations for future fiscal years, and instead of using those monies for operations, he used them for projects. What we're proposing is that let's go and suspend some of those capital projects now and use those monies to preserve operations.
Meanwhile, Senator Alicia Hansen has proposed a number of measures as revenue generators for the territory. Most recently, the senator submitted a bill that would allow taxpayers with outstanding balances to the government to offset that debt with any money the VI government owes them.
There are a lot of business people, I met with several of them, who are concerned that the government owes them money. But at the same time, they either have to close down their businesses or they continue to struggle while the government owes them. So they recommended the issue relative to offsetting what they owe versus what the government owes. And therefore, they will remain in business, are able to bring in more revenues to the government of the Virgin Islands. Additionally, I thought that extending it to people with property taxes, people should not lose their property based on lack of payment while the government owes them thousands of dollars in retroactive payment or any other type of payment.
Wallaby Hospital is struggling to stay afloat financially. Hospital officials have decided to implement Wallaby Hospital's 3rd ever amnesty program effective immediately in an effort to generate revenue. From now until July 31st, people who have outstanding balances with Wallaby Hospital are eligible for up to a 50% discount on all accounts paid in full. Those payments can be made to the hospital cashier or online. Account holders can also call account services at 773-4401 for more information. Well, passengers flying out of the territory no longer have to worry about any further delays. Over the past 24 hours, the Cyril E. King Airport runway lighting system experienced a series of malfunctions, forcing all airlines to cancel their evening flights in and out of the territory. The problem, officials say, have now been fixed as they look towards a more permanent solution.
A failure in the electrical wiring at the Cyril E. King Airport on St. Thomas was the cause of the runway lighting malfunction that occurred yesterday. The King Airport was closed from Monday at 7:30 p.m. and reopened today at 1:08 a.m. Some of the wires were burned, and this prevented most of the runway lights from being activated when the switch was turned on by the Federal Aviation Administration's Air Traffic Control Tower yesterday. New wiring was installed, and the lights are now functioning properly. The Port Authority will determine the feasibility of installing a redundant electrical system to prevent this from reoccurring.
The Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority and Fortress Electric crews continue installation on high voltage and secondary cables in Christiansted. Work is scheduled for 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. daily through Saturday, June 8th. Work will continue on King Street and between Prince Street and Queen Cross Street to transfer customers onto the existing Feeder 1 underground circuit. The installation of high voltage cable will continue on King Street from Prince Street up to Church Street. The installation of secondary cable will continue on Strand Street, on Queen Cross Street up to King Street and Strand Lane. On June 3rd, in the Harborview Apartments, 17-year-old male minor told police that he, at 11:30, he was walking and talking on his cell phone, and another male walked up to him and asked for the phone. The victim gave the suspect the phone, and the suspect started walking away with his phone. When the victim asked for his phone, the suspect brandished a gun and told him not to say anything. The suspect is described as about 5'6" tall and 130 pounds, wearing a black t-shirt and gray and red sneakers. Also on June 2nd, occurring in the Watergut area, police were dispatched to investigate a man down. However, when police arrived on the scene, they encountered a man who seemed to be intoxicated with the strong smell of alcohol surrounding his body. According to police, the victim told police he was robbed at gunpoint. Domestic violence detectives on St. Croix arrested Michael Monsanto on June 3rd and charged him with burglary in the 3rd degree domestic violence after he was identified as the person who entered into his former girlfriend's apartment without permission and assaulted her. Police say the break-in and assault that occurred on February 13. Reports indicate Monsanto entered into his former girlfriend's residence in the Harborview Apartments through a sliding glass window at 5:30 a.m., dragged the victim out of bed into the living room and began to choke her. Monsanto was interrupted by several persons who also reside in the apartment and subsequently fled. Virgin Islands police officers responding to an activated alarm discovered more than 300 marijuana plants inside a private residence in St. Peter Estate. The plants were suspended from wires strung across the ceiling. Police arrested Dennis Michael Fortes and charged him with possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute. Fortes was placed on a $10,000 bail. The court allowed him to post bail and released him until he is called to court again.
Officers then called for additional assistance from the High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force. Police talked to a female in the area who identified herself as the mother of the individual who resided in the apartment. Shortly after, the resident of the home, identified as 23-year-old Dennis Michael Fuertes, arrived at the apartment. Police obtained a search warrant from the VI Superior Court and seized the marijuana along with a digital scale, Ziploc baggies, boxes and bags of cut and dried marijuana, marijuana crushers, rolling papers, and other drug paraphernalia that were found inside the residence.
3 housing communities, the Tutu high-rise apartments on St. Thomas and the Williams Delight Villas and John F. Kennedy Terrace on St. Croix, have been selected as the program test sites for a Boy Scout partnership. The Virgin Islands Housing Authority has already committed to provide the space needed in each of the communities for the Boy Scouts to meet. Lieutenant Governor Gregory Francis recently hosted a meeting with top officials from the Virgin Islands Housing Authority, the Virgin Islands Police Department, and the Virgin Islands Council of the Boy Scouts to discuss community building initiatives as a means of stemming crime in the territory. Today, conservative groups described to lawmakers exactly what it was like when the IRS singled them out for extra scrutiny. The tax agency also got hit with the new Inspector General's report outlining excessive expenses. Danielle Nottingham is on Capitol Hill with the latest.
These 6 leaders of conservative groups say the IRS unfairly singled them out for their political beliefs.
This was not an accident. This is a willful act of intimidation.
Becky Garrettson testified the IRS ignored her application for tax-exempt status for more than a year and then asked her Alabama Tea Party group for copies of all speeches, emails, and donor lists.
I'm a born-free American woman, wife, mother, and citizen, and I'm telling my government that you've forgotten your place.
Attorney John Eastman claimed the IRS committed a felony when it released information about his group's donors who oppose same-sex marriage.
There's a reason some people want to have their activities confidential, so that they don't get harassed.
Several lawmakers on the panel were equally outraged.
No American should be targeted by the government for their personal views.
And the IRS is facing cleanup from another scandal. This brand new Inspector General's report details how the agency used taxpayer dollars on lavish employee conferences.
It suggests to me that we have an organization, a very powerful organization that feels that it's above the law.
Lawmakers say they plan to continue their investigation in a transparent way so the IRS can work to regain the public trust. Danielle Nottingham, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And keeping our eye on the economy, stocks got an early boost from news that the nation's trade deficit was not as wide as expected in April. The Commerce Department says the trade deficit grew 8.5% to more than $40 billion. Demand in the U.S. for foreign cars, cell phones, and other imported goods offset a jump in exports to the second highest level on record. This is the New York Stock Exchange, Scotiabank Stock Market Watch. Everything down. The Dow 76, NASDAQ 20, S&P 9. Coming up on News 2, do you know in the past few decades the threats from pollution, overfishing, and other forms of exploitation have increased dramatically? That is why we recognize World Oceans Day. A local group plans to take you under the sea via their camera lens. Students at the University of the Virgin Islands who are in good standing with the school can apply to the Virgin Islands legislature for a summer internship this year. The Senate's leadership announced the new program Friday and said it will give the students the chance to learn more about various aspects of politics and public administration. 10 students between the 2 districts will be selected for that program. Applications must be submitted by June 14th and are available online at www.legvi.org or any legislature office. The Department of Planning and Natural Resources has recently conducted site visits at parcel numbers 158 and 160 Subbase in Crown Bay in St. Thomas. This area, which is also known as the DPNR Boatyard, was found to be littered with abandoned boats, trailers, and vehicles. Investigations have revealed that these derelict vessels pose potential danger to the environment and is requiring immediate removal of these vessels by its owners on Friday, June 7, 2013. Failure of immediate removal of the vessels will result in removal and disposal by the Department of Planning and Natural Resources at the owner's expense or a court judgment against the owner. For any questions regarding this matter, you can call the Division of Environmental Enforcement at 773-5774. Well, do you know in the past few decades, the threats from pollution, overfishing, and other forms of exploitation have increased dramatically? That is why we recognize World Oceans Day. A local film festival aims to take you down below to explore firsthand. World Oceans Day is a global recognition held on June 8th every year to raise awareness of the crucial role the sea plays as sources of food, oxygen, and medicine.
The oceans, as everyone knows, are in, no pun intended, deep trouble. They constitute our food security, the air we breathe, and they are certainly a critical, probably the most critical component to our biosphere.
And because not everyone has the opportunity to go down below to experience the beauty and serenity of the ocean, those who do like to share what they see. And that's the idea behind the very first of its kind Reef Renaissance Film Festival.
It's called, again, Reef Renaissance Film Festival. And since I'm in that business and I have the honor and privilege of being able to work with a lot of different filmmakers from around the world, and our work appears together at film festivals and dive shows and what have you. We're going to be featuring 3 short films by 333 Productions, which comprises, the brains behind it are 2 dear friends, Bill Fisher and Joe Romero. Joe, well, both of them, but Joe especially, is probably the preeminent shark shooter of our time. He's really, really good at shooting sharks. We're also going to be showing a film for the first time. It's an actual world premiere because it just got finished, and it's being kind of shopped out as a series pilot by our friend Jonathan Bird of Jonathan Bird's Blue World, which is a PBS series. And finally, there will be a very short piece that is a work in progress that I'm doing called The Psychedelic World of Coral Reefs. And it's about coral fluorescence. Corals, some corals glow under ultraviolet light.
The festival will be held on Saturday, June 8th, World Oceans Day at Bolongo Bay Beach Resort.
And it will be screened in all its high-definition glory as soon as the sun goes down. And we'll watch movies for a couple of hours, and these are really, really wonderful films. And bring your own popcorn.
Now you can check out the Reef Renaissance Film Festival on Facebook for more information. There's also a scheduled group dive on Friday you can sign up for. Well, 3 storm chasers were among at least 13 people who were killed in the latest violent burst of storms to hit central Oklahoma Friday. Professional storm chasers are mourning. As Terrell Brown reports, their deaths are raising new questions about whether storm chasing has gotten out of control.
Tim Samaras was among the most respected and experienced storm hunters around. A scientist who's chased tornadoes for over 25 years, he was known for putting safety first.
I take responsibility for my crew's safety, so I call the shots of whether or not we go or we stay, or we drive down that muddy road or not.
55-year-old Samaras was known to TV viewers for his appearances on National Geographic and Storm Chasers on Discovery. Also killed with Samaras were his 24-year-old son, Paul, and his chase partner, Carl Jongh.
This was a very ill-defined, disorganized tornado. It was jumping from place to place, and it was very unpredictable. And often, this was a rain-wrapped tornado, so it was very difficult to see.
This map shows the position of spotters Friday tracking the tornado near the town of El Reno. Nowadays, the chasers are also followed by thrill seekers and weekend weather warriors. There's also intense competition to get the most dramatic video that is sold to all the major news outlets, including CBS News. So during a tornado, there may be hundreds of people jammed on narrow dirt roads in extremely dangerous conditions, all trying to get a closer look.
It's just hard to maneuver. It's hard to get around. People stop, they don't pull off the road, and it just becomes gridlock.
That even someone as seasoned and careful as Samaras can lose his life has given many of his colleagues pause.
I think this tragic event has made some of the storm chasers realize that there has been a complacency as of late, and they really have to go back to those safety rules that they have in place and making sure they do not put themselves in harm's way.
For CBS This Morning, Terrell Brown, New York.
And more weather news straight ahead. Your AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.